These giant tides that we experience, they destroy the soil. In that the soil are destroyed, the soil are swept away, and the soil being the major part of production, food will not be there. Food will not be there, starvation will be there. Starvation, hunger.
Approximately every 50,000 years, the Earth faces a supervolcanic eruption. This can cause sulfur and ashes. Sulfur reflects the light, and when it reflects the light, we see that the Earth or the daytime looks not more different to a moonlight night.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know every time you tune into this hour, we are hosting the Great Debaters Contest, Connect Edition, giving you a veteran's outlook on current debates, and I am Austin Yimbok.
I'm Chris Boru from Jomo Kenyatta University. I'm a geomatic engineer.
Eden Kimondo, pharmacy student, Nairobi University.
Abigail Kadzo, interior design, Maseno University.
Julie Kiruma, actual science, Jomo Kenyatta University.
And I'm Mariam Bishar, your host. Today we're discussing whether climate change is the single greatest threat to human existence. And we have Kip Keino High School, who went versus their opponent AIC Chabisas. It was a very interesting motion. I'd like to say, I don't know, I feel like it leaned towards the proposition. When you say climate change is the single greatest threat to human existence, the proposition said very clearly, one, climate change affects food security. How can a race go on? Can the human race progress without food security? Do you agree with them, Chris?
Yeah, true. Climate change plays a very great role in our existence. It's in our ecosystem. The flora and fauna, they both depend on each other. Plants, animals, humans. It's all a cycle. And each ecosystem has its own climate for it to exist. So if this climate changes, the ecosystem also changes. And the ecosystem also includes the flora and the fauna. So if the flora diminishes, you expect also the fauna to diminish. It's a loss-loss thing. So when the climate changes in a certain ecosystem, for example, in the tropical region, since the equator passes through our country, so the whole country and the Central African region is a tropical region. So when the climate changes, there might be a shift in the climate from the tropics to, winter. We might enter the winter season, which is not in our climatic region.
Eden, it's very easy to argue that we've already started seeing the brunt of climate change. Like the seasons we've had throughout this year and last year, heavy rainfall, intense heat we haven't seen before. Do you think that that's true and that climate change is the greatest threat to our existence?
Climate change is a threat to our existence, but I don't think it is a single greatest threat to our existence. Climate change takes a while. It takes about 20 to 30 years for climate to properly change and to start seeing the effects of it. But there are other things like atomic bombs, wars, that we see the effects are immediate. So the climate change, by the time we finally have a different climate, there's already adaptations that we've come up. There are already drought-resistant plants that have come up. But when there's a war, there's no way you can start saying there's a nuclear adaptation that we'll all get, because the effects are immediate. So yes, it is a threat, but it is not the greatest single threat.
Don't you think that focusing on the fact that climate change is a threat to our humanity in general is a bit misguided, and we should focus more on the fact that us as human beings are not actively prepared for climate change?
We can't be actively adapting. When you feel hot, your body, you don't start sweating immediately. The first thing you do is you take off a few of your clothes. Then you feel cooler. Then if it's still too hot, then now you start sweating so that your body tries to adapt. We can't have active adaptation because our bodies are not machines. They're systems that will have to be activated. So we can't just, it's cold. So now I'm frozen.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about.
It's hot. Okay, so now I'm sweating too much.
We're not taking...
It will always... We can't have active adaptation. It's not meant to be that way for a human body.
Abigail?
Yeah. I'm going to handle what you said. I think you're asking what we are doing about the climate changing. And what I feel like we're mostly doing is holding a lot of useless meetings.
Thank you. I
I don't think we're really handling it because I don't think we think it's a threat. And like Chris said, it is a threat on its own. I personally think it's the greatest, because the greatest things are the ones you don't think will hit you, you know? Because we think it's global warming. It won't be really bad until 200, 300, 400, 500 years. We're good, I won't be alive, you know? That's what we're thinking. So we don't think it's something we need to handle. So the best we can do is, send guys out for meetings, sit down, then broadcast what you guys did, and then whoop, it's over. After 20 minutes of seeing it on telly, it doesn't concern me. And that's our biggest problem. This thing is a threat, but what are we doing personally? Because we don't think it's going to affect us until we won't even be there, until our grandchildren,
Yeah, so the fact that it's an unseen threat is what makes it the single greatest threat. I think you and Chris agree on that. I think I partly agree on that as well. The opposition.
So am I the only oddball here seeing that the fact that, fine, we've outlined, it being that the climate is changing, we can't call that per se a threat. A threat is the fact that we are not doing anything that safeguards us.
No, the climate change has effects.
Yeah,
these effects are what are going to wipe us out
in the long run.
But we can put measures to ensure that these effects do not exactly wipe us out.
Which we will, but we first need to agree that it's a threat, which I think we all do agree. I want to focus on the opposers' argument so we don't neglect them. They said, you know what, we have bigger threats facing us than climate change. They cited, for example, disease, poverty, so many other things. Do you agree with them?
No.
That perhaps these things are a bigger threat to our existence. So nobody on this panel says like, disease.
I agree.
You know what, Ebola could wipe us all out.
And I'd say apart from that, they've left out the part that we're also not prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, because fine, as they're talking about poverty and what else? Remind me?
Disease.
And diseases, right? The fact that we allow poverty and disease to actually take place. And at the end of the day, that we suffer from poverty and the diseases actually become very hard to handle, right? Those problems, the main reason that there's such a huge threat is the fact that we have no ways to prevent such diseases. We do not put our efforts in preventing such problems, in safeguarding the society from poverty, in trying to raise the standards of living.
The biggest problem facing humanity is our unpreparedness.
Yes, and our neglect.
But I think this can't be a point, because from the biology I learned, every disease has an animal or something.
A host.
That host has to adapt to the climate. For a host to survive, it has to have a good environment for it to survive. Yeah? So the environment we are creating for the host to survive could be
the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's my point of view with
So basically we are consciously spoiling hold on. This is the state you're actually putting across. We are literally spoiling we're making it easier for this bacteria or this organism to live in the environment by destroying the environment, sort of.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think that us consciously neglecting the fact that we are destroying the environment?
Here's the thing. Diseases will be a problem, because not every disease, some of these organisms that cause disease don't adapt to climate change.
Thank you very much.
The food we eat will cause diseases.
And nobody forces food down your throat.
The activities we undertaking cause diseases.
Or choose not to undertaken, i.e. exercise.
Yeah, choose or not choose to undertaking cause diseases. So we can't say climate change is the thing that causes diseases, because if I decide I'll be eating at the roadside every day, I have a really high risk of getting cholera. It doesn't matter if it's raining or it's sunny or I'll get something strong with my digestive system. So that the climate wouldn't have played a part.
So Eden, Eden, you stated that climate change maybe not the single greatest threat, right?
Yes.
So if not if not climate change, what would you name as wars
and human habit generally?
I'm with you right there.
No,
in fact, the motion should have been stated. Actually, from my point of view, the motion should have been stated that humanity, in its own self, existentially, is the single greatest threat to
its
humanity.
own existence.
Austin,
Yes.
let me tell you something. All of you are refusing to look at. Okay, she said diseases. The opposite said diseases. But then again, I'm talking about urgent. The thing with us is we don't see urgent. Then I agree with you.
Thank you.
We should say humanity is a threat to their own survival. Because you see, diseases, wars, those things cannot wipe out humanity. Because the thing with when they happen is we attack them head on. You know, if there's a war in Uganda today, Kenya will upgrade their security because they know Uganda is close or someone is close. Everyone else is going to, you know what, Uganda was attacked by terrorists. Okay, let's do this, let's do this. If there's a disease, let's talk about Ebola. See, when Ebola hit wherever it hit.
West Africa.
Yes, Africa.
Most often.
Wherever it hit West Africa, even the States, every other country made sure they had measures in place to make sure us guys are not getting Ebola. See, that's the thing with these things, the urgent. So because we think diseases and wars are urgent, we will have measures in place to make sure these things don't wipe us out. But the thing with climate is there are floods there are floods somewhere in Asia today. And then tomorrow we are doing something that's probably going to expose us to floods, but you know, we don't mind. I mean, Asia had their floods.
Thank you.
It's just Asia. It's over.
You know what?
We're not going to suffer from that. You know, we don't see the urgent, but then when it comes, it's just going to be in the news for a few days and then it goes. We don't attack it head on with the urgent it needs to be given.
We end up trendifying climate.
Let me just ask before we go on break. Everyone across the panel, I know Chris has already said he thinks climate change is the single greatest threat. I think I agree with him. You said human existence, yeah? Our own existence is the greatest threat to
We let
ourselves.
Yes.
Existentially, we are making ourselves extinct subconsciously, yes. But I'll ask
and consciously.
And consciously. Okay. In one word, whatever you think is the greatest threat. So Eden, Abigail, and Julie. Before we go on break, whatever you think. Chris, you still maintain that it's climate change, right?
Climate change.
Yes. Okay. So I'll hear from
One
Eden
word.
and Abby. Yes.
I think the biggest threat is really the urgent things that can wipe us out immediately. Wars, diseases, behavior choices, basically. I think those are greater than the climate change.
Okay. Abby?
I agree with Austin. Humanity just in itself.
In itself. Okay. Julie?
Long run climate, short run humanity.
Humanity.
Okay.
Thank you. We're seeing some sanity
Okay,
here.
I agree with Chris. I feel like our humanity can be checked. We're an evolving species. We will, if we are causing our own detriment to a great extent, at some point we will realize it and we will adapt
When
our
it's too
behaviors.
late?
No, that's why it's a short
I
run.
agree with
That's why it's a short run.
But I agree with Chris. We have to go to break now, though. We have to go to break. Join us after the break, where we'll be discussing more matters on climate change.
This climate change is affecting the country. So the only way we have to help this problem, because climate change is affecting our place in a period of, let me say, 35 years. So in that period of 35 years, a lot of changes will take place. Some agricultural sectors are not going to be improved, and some tourism activities also cannot be improved. So we should help solve this problem of climate change so that we may raise the income of our country.
We do acknowledge that climate change may cause death of lives in the world. There are many other issues which may eventually cause our demise. These issues that we have spoken about, the natural calamities, the viruses, though thought small, may lead to the demise of the human race.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're back for the Connect edition. And before the break, we were talking about what are we doing as young people in terms of reducing the fact that the effect that climate change has on our environment. Chris, in fact, you're a geomatic engineer. Don't you deal with climate on a daily basis?
Yeah, this is what I do on a daily basis: a spatial analysis, climate, land measurement, construction, satellites, all those things. Now I was saying we're planting trees everywhere. We're curbing on deforestation, increasing on afforestation, reforestation, all these things. But still, climate is still changing. Let me even say weather, because it comes down to the weather. And at the end of the day, what you guys are not getting is we have these things. We're planting trees, we're preventing deforestation, we are, reducing on the carbon in the atmosphere.
Who is we?
We represent car companies, because those are the guys who usually actually influence climate change. They are manufacturing cars that are removing less of lead-2 oxide. such that it won't destroy the atmosphere. So they're coming up with ways in which the environment can exist in a way it won't harm us. Because if we take care of the environment, it will take care of us. It's a fact of life.
Eden, what are you doing to mitigate climate change as a person, and what do you think the youth are doing?
As a person, I try to conserve resources, and like when you're not using water, just turn the tap off. When you're not using the lights, switch them off. It goes a long way. But then again, it all comes down to, I still don't think it's the biggest thing that would kill us, but it's good that we start controlling it. If your land is somewhere where it's a bit shaky and when it rains it floods, do yourself a favor and build a bit on a higher ground, or just don't build your house exactly on the river bank. But then I can't do that because I'm not at the position yet to build a house. But it's a point of awareness, and I don't think the youth are really doing anything actively to stop global warming. As she said, all we're doing really is holding big meetings, and what we're seeing is not much coming from those big meetings. So there's not really something that we can actively do to make sure that the climate doesn't change, because it will change. The sun will shine and it will rain. So and it will
we should
change.
just simply adapt.
That's the best thing we can do.
Okay. Abby, tell us, what are you doing?
I think I represent the greater number of people who don't do much. And I will honestly say that. I litter sometimes when no one is looking. I forget to turn the tap off. I forget to turn the light off. I hope this won't get me arrested. But, I represent the very large number that doesn't do much, that doesn't think it's as important. And I will come out right and say that. And I think it's high time a lot of people accept it and decide, you know what, let me try and not litter today. We're not telling you to wake up and if you litter, I will slap myself. No. We are telling you to wake up and decide, I will try not to litter. A step a day. I will try and use a less pungent perfume. And since all this is collective, the thing with climate change is collective, everyone has something to own up to. If you're driving a car with an exhaust fume that is, faulty, why don't you fix it, Decide, let me just fix my exhaust fume. It's the little things. We're not telling you to force yourself, but realize there's urgency and convict yourself to try and do something different for the climate today.
Okay, Julie?
I personally don't litter. I can't litter. And what will help our youth to change is what helped me to change. I stopped littering because I was wondering, if I litter, I keep on littering, it will cause a blockage somewhere, and when I want to walk through that path, I can't walk because water there's a puddle of water there. That's what I thought. And from that day, even though my dad throws something like, no, let's go back, pick that thing, and we'll move on. Because you are trying to make the environment for someone to be conducive with. And I'll feel better when I know I've not littered, and when someone else, say a grandma is walking, she can walk peacefully without any struggles of jumping, doing something. And that's what people should actually be thinking right now. Let me not litter because of A, B, C, D, not because you're trying to make the world a better place. Yes, you are making the world a better place, but that is not your mindset. You're trying to care about the next person or even yourself in the long run.
Okay. Oh.
Mariam, what are you doing?
A lot of the small things that people have said here, I honestly do them. I try to avoid littering. I try to avoid paper bags as much as possible. If anything from the supermarket, if it can go in my bag as opposed to getting a paper bag, I will try. I try to buy the aluminium canned soda instead of a plastic one. I switch off lights, but those are tiny things. I think the most I can do and the most people can do is to educate people about climate change. Because if I do it, but everyone around me is doing a different thing, there's no change at the end of the day. So I think just spreading the word, letting people, because so many people still don't think climate change is real. People are in some very weird slumberland. And it's not about feeling better. I know there's this sense of entitlement that green people have, because I'm better than you because I recycle and I water my lawn with, recycled water. But it's not about that. It's honestly about the next generation. You might not live to see the worst of climate change, but there's an earth to preserve, yeah?
I'd like to bring like a personal issue into the panel. It's not exactly personal, but it's from my own point of view. I stay around an area, there's this building, yeah? They had the opportunity of constructing a borehole, right? Now, every day I pass there, yeah? The pipe that connects the borehole is allowed to flow. So constantly, water flows out of that house. There's a pipe, the house is built, and the pipe juts out of the house, and water literally flows out. Yeah? Don't you think now as people, as a society, we've forsaken the fact that, fine, our climate is not important, and the fact that we are capitalizing, yeah? We're prioritizing profit, yeah, over preserving our environment. And we only talk about environment, climate, weather, when it's convenient or when it's trendy.
I get what you're saying. We talk about it when there's a summit on climate change and only when it's convenient for us. But I think that comes back down to the issue of we're not aware of how big a threat climate change is. That's why it's only relevant when something is happening, right? But the minute we realize that, hey, this thing is going to hit us sooner than we think, and it might even wipe out our entire existence, we'll move much faster. Like things like getting not the big five, like getting China and the US to agree on cutting back carbon emissions, making it super expensive for industries to emit waste. Things like that will take place once we educate people as to how urgent it is. People might not know that, hey, we're wasting water. People might see that water and it doesn't click. There's people who don't have clean water to drink, but in a Mogikapa. So the minute you educate people as to what is happening, I think there'll be a bigger sense of urgency. Last one, does anyone have an idea on how we can push our agenda when we have climate summits or whatever, how we can push our agenda such that big emitters don't leave us with the burden of climate change? How do we push our agenda?
Then again, I will put it as I think I will probably further on what Austin said. Again, it's the matter of people. It depends on the people you choose to represent you, I would say. Because all of us can't, push capitalized countries. We can't push China. We can't push the USA and tell them, you guys have to stop doing this. You're threatening the survival of all of us. It depends on who we are choosing. How, of course, because I think it starts from a really grassroots level. Because I think in every estate, there's a garbage collector, and then the garbage collector doesn't go dump the garbage at a specific. There's always a place where there's a dump site. There's a dump site, and the place is not supposed to be a dump site. So it's something that starts at a grassroots level, because it depends on who you put to represent you. How much responsibility do they have? How much do they? Because sometimes we can also decide we will collectively take action and do this, but also the people above there fail us because we are trying and they are not trying. So if we put them and then you're part of the council, the county or the Nairobi or whatever city council that's supposed to control how garbage is collected, where it's taken, where there's not supposed to be garbage, but you're not doing anything, or you just, you don't really care. You have your money, you have everything, there's garbage here. There's no single day you wake up and decide, you know what, get this off here, get this off here. All you garbage collectors, I will license you have to take this garbage here. Again, it comes down to who are we choosing, who is representing us, because that is also, that also
And
matters.
also it's important to highlight what we're doing with that garbage. Understand? What we're using that waste to do, because if we let it lie there, but we've taken it all the way from the cities. Our cities are clean, our streets are clean, but now
where is it going?
Is it?
Okay,
yeah?
Chris, final comment from Chris on how do we push our agenda on the global scale to make sure we don't suffer the brunt of climate change on our own?
They say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and it's not more about who we choose. Okay, yes, Abby, at the end of the day, it's who we choose to put at the environmental management sector. But it's what do I do? What will she do? What will you guys do? That will, as if I step on this place with my force, it won't be that loud. But if we all step as one, it will be very loud. What Julie said.
Form like an African unit to push for agenda.
It's all about a voice.
Okay.
We need a voice. You see, it's voice.
Will a voice plant a tree?
You see, actually,
a voice
you remember.
will push someone else to reduce their carbon emissions.
But don't you think we've had so much voices before?
Let me tell you the reason we've not, the voice for the environment will be heard. When we were, the time people have been being told to vote in the previous election, the voice of the nation at that time was vote. go vote. You have the power to change your country. You have the power to change a nation. You have the power to change your leader. That was the voice then. Tomorrow I wake up, maybe I'm the CS environment, or I'm an NGO director somewhere, and it's my opportunity to make a change in this world. It's my voice. I start a campaign. I make it trend. I get everyone on board. I get as many people. It's about my effort. And I believe if I was there, that's what I would have done. Because it's possible.
Okay, Eden, final comment.
The thing that I think that will be like a voice from us to them to stop their carbon emissions, we say experience is the best teacher. So if, as you're saying, we educate people, even the person seated next to you, and Kenya as a country, we decide to change it. And we become environmentalists, conservatives, and we try and make where we are better. And like when they are coming like for vacation to Kenya, or when there are meetings in Kenya, they'll sense the difference in the air and they'll ask, what are you doing? Can we try and do it? That because they are always copying what they find suitable and what they feel that is nice. So experience is the best teacher. Let's start here, improve our country. When they're coming for meetings and they feel our weather, they'll honestly say it feels different, it feels calm, it's not strained, and they'd want to do the same thing.
I think that's very important. Okay, I'd like to thank our wonderful panel for their very interesting views on matters climate change. What are you as a person doing to mitigate climate change? Keep the conversation going on Twitter at Great Debaters EA. I have been your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Yumbok. Thank you for watching.